Hello, everyone, and welcome to the 25th RNCI, Red Nation International Film Festival. And today we are having our Red Nation Indigenous Filmmakers Lounge, and it's the Conversation series. And we are spotlighting today a film, which I love this film. It's called Monkey Beach. And our guest filmmaker is Loretta Todd. And but before we go into a conversation with Loretta, I'm going to introduce a couple of things that are happening right now with the festival. So you can visit rednationff.com. Our festival runs until the end of the month. Our award ceremony is on November 29th. And our concert series fundraiser is on the 30th. And we have, for the concert series, it's artists in solidarity for creating systemic change through music and arts and media. And we have Joe Walsh and Jennifer Warrens and Joanne Shenandoah and Corey Morton, and it just goes on the list. But I encourage you to participate and visit rednationff.com. So one of the most incredible things this year for our festival is that we have 105 films this year, and they're all gorgeous. 73 documentaries, 35 directed by women, 12 student films, and 10 experimental, all from the US, Canada, Italy, Greenland, Australia, Mexico, Ecuador, France, Iceland, New Zealand, and Greece. And so I definitely would encourage you to, I'm pulling up this stuff. That's what I encourage you to visit rednationff.com. Okay, so now I'm going to introduce to you Loretta Todd, who's an amazing filmmaker and one of our Native women filmmakers. And her film is Monkey Beach, and it is, it's been nominated in eight categories, 8 nominations for the Red Nation Film Award. For Best Film, Director Loretta Todd, Best Actress, Best Supporting Actress, Best Actor, Best Supporting Actor. And so this film, it's an effort to turn her life around. A young Indigenous woman returns to her hometown and discovers how dysfunctional her family has become. So everybody help me welcome Loretta Todd, all the way from Vancouver.
I can't say hi. I'm so grateful for you to first program Monkey Beach. It means so much. I mean, Red Nation is a very important film festival, and it's so wonderful to be part of it. And then also, I'm so happy to be speaking with you today.
So Loretta, this film, when I viewed it, before I turned it over to everybody else, I really love this movie. It's really, and Grace is extraordinary, and Tina, everyone is, all the guys. It's just, but the one thing that I love that you tapped into is the spirit world. And that's something that's really important to me personally. It's really where I live most of the time. That's where my ancestors are and that inspire me. So I'd like to know how you came up with this film. Like what vision did you have, or what inspired you to come up with this movie?
Well, I mean, I have to start with the book, first of all, that it was based on by Eden Robinson. So, you know, the book had been, you know, someone had recommended the book to me. They said that, you know, her writing is like your filmmaking. So I thought, oh, I got to check out this book. Although, of course, I heard about it and I read it and quickly identified with Lisa, the character Lisa. I mean, she is so embodies, you know, so many of the journeys that Indigenous women, you know, are on in their lives. And so she was somebody that I really spoke to me. It was really important because the book is so layered. There's so many parts to the story, so many parts to the book. But how do I hone in? How do I take this, you know, very complex book that, you know, sort of shifts time and place, is very elliptical, goes here and there, sometimes in a paragraph. And how do I kind of make it a story that is, you know, I'm going to take the people on a journey? And so I thought that spirituality, that idea of medicine, that was a thing that sort of struck me, how it was really important for this to be a journey of an Indigenous woman embracing her medicine. And that's kind of what then started to shape the film and the direction that the film would go in. Because I thought if I could find that trajectory, if I could find that journey, then that would be the thing that would be most meaningful to the audience, and especially for Indigenous audiences, especially for Indigenous women. I wanted at the end of the film, you know, young Indigenous women and not so young Indigenous women just be able to say, hey, I can be like her. I can embrace my medicine. I have these powers within. So that's part of that's sort of the theme or the philosophy behind the choices I made. And then it was really important for me to make a film that was really, really beautiful. I think throughout my work as a filmmaker, I've always sought to create a lot of beauty. I mean, even when I was doing low budget films or low budget documentaries, it was really critical to me to make sure that, you know, our people are epic. You know, we've survived colonization, we've survived genocide, we're these epic people. And I've always tried to convey that in the, you know, how I position the camera, you know, the way I use the camera, you know, all the things that go into making a film. So so I had to think about that. I mean, how am I going to cast this? You know, how am I going to, you know, use the camera? And I had this very elaborate plan, actually, when, you know, back in the day. It's taken me a long time to make this film.
How long? How many?
I optioned it, you know, good 15 years ago. And, you know, so it's been a long journey. I was kind of ahead of the curve. I mean, even though I know in Canada, there's many more opportunities for Indigenous filmmakers now, back then there wasn't, you know, so we were kind of doing our best. I originally was working with Jeff Bear, who's a, you know, a Mi'kmaq producer here in Canada, who, you know, is a friend. So he was sort of, you know, first part of that journey with me. But we, you know, we had creative differences, so we split, but we, you know, we're still friends and we still respect each other's work. And I thank him. I thank him. I have a heartfelt thanks to him in the credits. But it was sort of, I had to, you know, back in the day they would say, you know, you have to do up a book. You know, now it's a scissor reel, but even that, you know, a few years ago they were saying do up this book. So I did this elaborate book actually that was you know, the way I was going to approach this film. How was I going to deal with the elliptical nature of the storytelling? How was I going to deal with, you know, the idea of, you know, land as character? How was I going to portray the different times, you know, from shifting from past to present? How was I going to depict the spirit creatures, the spirit world? So those were all things that I kind of already laid out. I mean, I've been having this vision for a long time, so I've been carrying it with me. And, you know, realities of budgets happen, what you wanted to do and what, you know, what you could do with budget. But I think I always try to still maintain the integrity of the original storytelling and maintain that integrity of my original vision. And I think that's one of the things that's kept the story true.
Yeah, so I totally relate as a filmmaker myself, how long it takes to make a movie. And it takes a long time, especially a great movie. It takes a long time. It's just the nature of it, I guess. So what was your journey in finding the finances to do it?
Well, we're lucky in Canada because we do have telefilm, which is you know, it's something that finances feature films in Canada. You know, over the years, money has shrunk, so and the demand for it has grown. So there's many more filmmakers, but, you know, less money. But they had been there from the beginning. They were supportive in the beginning. We did development. So we started off developing, writing the script. You know, Eden Robinson, the book's author, was the original. She started the first script. She just said she just couldn't revisit the book. She couldn't revisit the characters. And she said it was just too, like, just taking her, you know, somewhere she didn't know she was prepared to go. Because, you know, there's a lot of trauma in the book. I mean, yeah. It's not like I kind of go into explicit detail in the film, but it's there. There's a lot of that in the book. So and then I took it on. And so, Telefilm was there, through that process. And also there were some other funding agencies in Canada called like the Green Book Fund that helps you adapt books to screen. So, they were very supportive. Then APTN announced, the Aboriginal People's Television Network here in Canada announced a new program in which they were going to give licenses to adapting Indigenous books to screen. So I got one of the first licenses, actually the first license to do that. But that still wasn't there. I mean, I had a script that everybody would say, oh, it's lovely, but it's too long. You're going to need, so many more, such a big budget. The other thing is I was insistent that we go to Kitimat, to the actual village where the story comes from, that it had to be filmed there. So that, of course, added another layer of budget because the village is like an 20-hour drive from Vancouver, and it's up, along the coast, either that or you take a boat or a ferry. And so it's a long way from Vancouver. So, those were all challenges with respect to the budget. Eventually, the Telefilm announced an Indigenous feature film fund, and I was able to apply to that. I was also able to go to other broadcasters, specifically Bell Media or what is called Crave TV, and they gave a license in addition to Telefilm, and then CBC gave a license as well. So big thing in Canada is that you also have to get tax credits. So even though you might have a budget, that's still not going to be your full budget. Canadian system sort of relies on tax credits, labor tax credits. So you spend this amount of money, but you say I'm going to project spending 500,000 or whatever on labor, then they'll say, well, our tax credits for 35% or whatever it is will help make up your budget. So that's basically the way that it went. I worked for many years without paying myself anything, and just kept being out of pocket just to make sure that I could keep moving the film forward. And that's, what you have to do. But yeah, I've been fortunate. I mean, there's no doubt that, there's a lot more Indigenous feature film funding in Canada than maybe, and probably most countries, maybe other than Australia and New Zealand need to support their Indigenous filmmakers as well. But after struggling all those years, finally I was at the right place at the right time.
Yeah, I've been trying for years to have, like, if everyone pulled their resources together and have an Indigenous fund, a body of an Indigenous here, because there isn't one, and it's tough. It is tough to get any film made. Any film.
Yeah.
It's a journey.
Sure. Yeah.
Yeah. So I have a lot of respect for anyone who gets a film made. But with that said, how is it to film with, like, Nathan is so wonderful. He's on a hit series. I love the series. And Grace and Tina. What was that like for you as a director with this talent that you had? You have great talent.
Well, I really, I wanted the film to be beautiful. Sometimes I struggled with that. It's like, and I have to struggle too, the fact that it's a West Coast story from Haisla territory. I'm Cree Métis from Alberta. Actually, my family is like very close to where Nathaniel's from. So Nathaniel and I are like brother and sister. I've known him for a long time, and he was in my first documentary, one of my first documentaries called Forgotten Warriors. He played the young soldier going off to war. So Nathaniel and I kind of started off at the same time. So I have a lot of, what's the word? I'm very sentimental about Nathaniel. I was like, I'm going to make sure one day I'm going to get him, get him in a really good film with a really good role, and and I have more planned. I hope we can make those ones too. But and Grace, of course, because it's taken a while to get here, there were other actors along the way who could have been Grace, but time went past, and so not to say that they couldn't, they're too old, because they're certainly not, but it just seemed like Grace was the right person again for this time. And I needed someone who could convey so much without words, and she's someone who really understands that. She has such confidence in herself, but she's just really understands energy. She understands how to convey those emotions, through through, a look, or through, tilt of a head, or all those things that, create that complete, portrayal of a character. So Grace, I always knew was really important. Plus, like I say, most of us are from, Adam Beach, Nathaniel, Tina, we're all from the prairies, most of us. And so, I was really making sure I had people from BC as well. And Grace is from Prince George area, which is, about 8 hours over from Kitimat. So it's not West Coast, but it's sort of like the next, nations over. So it was important for me to try to find someone, from the territory or close to the territory. And then also, other people as well. That sort of, it was amazing working with them. Every one of them. And on set, I asked Grace if she wanted to be called Grace or Lisa, and she said Lisa. So she really inhabited Lisa. She just immersed herself in Lisa. Someone like Tina's so charming, she spent a lot of time, because we had a 20-day shoot, which isn't a very long shoot. And she was very good, because she's from Beaver Lake First Nation, which is also, from where my family's near from. And she's very, very comfortable talking to elders. So she's from the res, and she was like, so she was able to kind of get the kind of physicality of that character, and of being, not being a Cree woman anymore, being a Haisla woman, but doing it in a respectful way, so she's not pretending to be Haisla. She's being that, that kukum, that grandmother, that mama who just knows how to, fiercely take care of their families, and, give them a kick in the butt when they need it, so she was, so yeah, it was lovely working with her. Everybody was so professional. Everybody worked so hard. I had a lot of Indigenous crew. I really worked hard. It was a union shoot, and not all our people, go through the union, but
Right.
we're just as experienced, and we have just the ability. So there was some disappointments where I was told, well, you can't hire that person because they're not union. So I kind of did my best to kind of work around that, but fortunately, because of doing my children's series, I'm very familiar with the good crews out there in Indian country, and so some of them are in the union, and so I was able to get as many Indigenous people on the crew, and then secondarily, women of color, or people of color, and then women. So there was that crew that was, backed up of some very gentle, non-Indigenous, white men, who were good for that setting, it was good for that story. But when our actors looked out, when they were shooting, they were being looked back at by, people like them. And I think that helps with the comfort level, the safety level,
Oh, yeah.
when you're going into those kinds of, especially very emotional aspects of the story, and the spiritual aspects of the story.
Right, right. Well, I have to say, forgive me, there's a joke here in our team here. I pronounce names I pronounce my own name, Janelle, with a G, and it's Jonelle. So Nathaniel, please forgive I called you name. Me too.
Hi, long as you call him, you don't call him late for dinner, I'm sure he's fine. And he's so old school. He's just total old school guy.
Yeah.
So much, yeah.
I so adore him. He's wonderful, and and his television series is up for awards at our awards ceremony as well. We do film and TV.
Yeah, I really like that. I really like his work that he's doing. I'm so happy for him that he's got that big break. Well,
the camera loves him. There's been several people that the industry has tried on episodic television, and the camera it didn't work.
Yeah.
But the camera loves him, and the whole team, they work well together. It's a great series.
Yeah, I would really like, I want a storyline with just him and the young woman who was in Rail Rider, who's in there now, Keisha.
Oh, right.
Yeah, wouldn't it be great to have just a storyline, just those two,
And I'll play the grandma.
Yeah. Well, I thought they could go rescue their boss, and they could meet up with you somewhere along the line. So,
yeah.
I'll write it.
I want to work with you. I want you to direct me, Loretta.
Oh,
Just putting it out there. So, you brought up crew, and this month for our film festival, we partnered with, I don't know, the list is extensive. We partnered with everyone, like across the country, even globally, with film commissions and film offices, and everyone's on board, even financially. It's been amazing. And our lead team is the Location Manager Guild International. And Todd Christensen, he's a location manager. But what we have is a registry, and we're training our people to learn these different aspects of the industry, like, you know, location and crew and PAs and script and wardrobe and all that. So I'd love to email you and give you the information so that you can send it to everybody that you know. Just sign up to the registry. It's free.
Oh, cool.
Just so that when the industry calls us, we have the list of everybody.
I'd love to do that. Yeah. And just as long as, you know, get our names out there, the more we get our names out there, the better.
Yeah. So, okay. So now for this film, Monkey Beach, you personally, as a woman and the director, spiritually, where did you go inside for this film for you? Like,
ooh, yeah, that's a tough question.
Yeah, it is.
There's so much grief, you know, in the book and in our lives. There's so much sorrow, you know. I mean, you know, when on social media, you know, every day it seems there's a child, you know, teenager missing, or a child missing, or an elder that, you know, goes too soon, or, you know, there's so much grief and sorrow in our lives. So we're still recovering from residential school, from, you know, genocide, from poverty, and so, you know, there's been a lot of grief in my family. And it's funny, when I made a documentary of the late Chief Dan George, and it was at a time when I was taking care of my mother, who had terminal cancer. Although we were trying to beat it, we were using spiritual, we were doing traditional and alternative treatments, and she actually was getting better at some point. So, you know, her life was longer and a better quality of life, you know, for that last year. But in the meantime, I'm making Chief Dan George's biography. And it's interesting because I saw that in that film, I dealt a lot with grief that came out a lot from the family because they missed their father so much. So I think that, you know, that definitely came. But what is grief? You know, like, how do we ceremonially deal with grief? How do we go there? And not everybody has the kind of supernatural abilities or the spiritual abilities that the character Lisa has to be able to not just deal with grief, but become a healer, if you like, to be able to go to the land of the dead and to be able to have that relationship with those people on the other side. So I think because I have dealt with grief a lot, and I, you know, encountered death, you know, directly, I think that I like to think I carry a strength that allows me to go there. Certainly, I wish I did more ceremony, but I certainly do bring ceremony to what I do. And I think of my work, I think of filmmaking as ceremony. I tried my best in the film. I mean, my protocols and my ceremony is different from the Haisla protocols and ceremony. But we did our best to create a spiritual space for the film. I always think of, when, you know, my films as a place of where it's a sacred place where we as crew, we as directors, all of us who are, you know, helping to tell the story, the people, the actors, the story, whether it's a documentary or a feature film, the people at the center who the story is being told through, we have to keep them safe. We have to keep a spiritual space for them, because they're going into those places of grief. They're going into those places of trauma, and we have to be there so that they don't get stuck there, they don't get triggered, that they go into there with the honesty and the power that they have within them as actors or as storytellers. But we have to be able to protect them at the same time so that they don't get lost there. And so those are those kind of fine lines. And I pray a lot, you know, probably could do more, but I definitely bring a lot of prayer to the work I do, and, you know, try to always be grateful and give thanks all the time. We were guided. We were so fortunate when we were making Monkey Beach. I'd always been told the only month you can make it in is August, because that's the only time it doesn't rain there. Like, you know, look, it's pouring rain here in Vancouver, and it's been for days, although yesterday was lovely. But if you go further north, sometimes it will rain seems like months. And so I was told, basically that if we didn't film it in August, you weren't going to be able to film it because it would just rain and there would be just too much rain. So we got approved in June, but all the paperwork had to be done. So we didn't even get all the paperwork done till like July. And so August we went up to start kind of planning, and there had been huge forest fires that year. And so there was smoke covering the mountains. You couldn't even really breathe properly. So it wouldn't have been a good time to actually film in August, but we weren't ready anyways. But then all of a sudden we were ready to go at the beginning of September. Well, you know, everybody went out and bought their rain gear and their rain boots and their rain, everything. We were all prepared for rain, and it didn't rain. It rained like a couple drizzled, maybe one half a day. It was cold like one night. It was just unbelievable. Everybody kept saying, it's not raining. And this is like totally never happens. It's not raining. I mean, yes, probably global, but you know, climate change, all those things have contributed, but it really felt like we were being guided. That people kept saying that. The people from in the village would say that there's someone looking out for you guys. And you know, the end of the film, we thank some people who were, you know, in tribute. The film was made in tribute to John Robinson, who's Eden and Carly Robinson's father, who passed away just a bit before. And Eden says he was my #1 fan. I used to send scripts up to them, and he would read them. And he finally, you know, he was, you know, I know he wanted to stay longer, but his Parkinson's got to him. And so it was also a tribute to my mother, who always wanted me to make a feature film, never gave up on me. And then also to Tom Rowe, who was a non-Indigenous guy who was, you know, kind of a cheerleader for the project back in the day. So I don't know, you know, some people say that there was some people guiding and helping so that we would be able to have the right conditions, so that safety that, you know, needed to happen. You know, we're out on the water. You know, there's a lot of water work, there's a lot of underwater work. We're, you know, we're putting our actors at risk, you know, doing fight scenes on boats. You know, if it was pouring rain with wind and storms, we wouldn't have been able to do it. So the fact that we were able to have that almost like an eye of the storm, if you like, to be able to feel that. So there must have been some ancestors looking out for us, I think.
Yeah, it definitely sounds like it. Yeah, I really totally believe and have unshakable faith that when things like that happen and we're divinely protected, that it's really an auspicious time, you know, and it's meant to be. And look at all the success. Yeah. We were in Variety. Monkey
yeah.
in Variety. It's the first time that the industry has recognized a Native festival with a whole lineup of the films. And so that was very exciting. We were just like Friday, just out of our minds over here, just so happy, and still flying with that. It's a good thing. It's a new day for our content creators, our filmmakers and actors, and I'm just really thrilled about it all. You know, you brought up, Loretta, Chief Dan George. And before this interview with you, I had an interview with Kiss the Ground directors, Rebecca and Josh, and we're honoring them with the Chief Dan George Award. It's a, excuse me, it's a humanitarian award that the family, I called the family and they blessed us and endorsed this award on behalf of their father and grandpa, that as long as we give it to humanitarians, you know, because he was such a humanitarian and environmentalist. So, and he always had that twinkle in his eye. The camera just loved him so much. And so yeah, so they're getting that. So they're getting the Chief Dan George Award. So the film that you did with Chief Dan George is complete?
Yeah, I did it back in the day. It's you know, it was done back in the day. I mean, you know, you're happy to have it, although I had a little problem with Warner's. They wouldn't, with regard of the outlaw Josie Wales. I don't think I wasn't able to get rights outside of Canada for using a clip from outside Josie Wales. I did get a clip from Little Big Man, the Columbia, and they had no problem with that. They were actually really lovely. So So it kind of limited, but I don't know. I mean, it could be renegotiated, I guess.
Yeah, it
times
can.
have changed, you know.
It
But
can.
it's a lovely film. I was very honored that the family, you know, let me do. I was, you know, good friends with the late Loretta George, you know, his, you know, youngest son, and so
Yeah.
I feel very honored that they asked me and let me be able to do that. So, but you know, and I have to say that, you know, you know, that wouldn't be a variety if it wasn't for, you know, your 25 years and the kind of impact you're making. And so, you know, you know, you know, my hands up to you and in that for being able to bring that attention to our work. So thank you so much for doing that.
You're welcome, Loretta.
Yeah.
I would love to have your films, all of your films, no, have them all on the television network. So just let me know which ones we can pick up. If you need help getting the licensing, we'll help, you know, make that happen. And it's a good day. And I think it's all very doable.
Oh, good. Yeah, it's good to know. Well, I would love to. Actually, I'd love to read. I think we should be. I'd like to redigitize that because it was shot on HD, but you know, things have changed since then. You know, so it'd be nice to sort of digitize it. And it was it's nice to see because all those family members. There's really, there's just the one sister left. You know, so it would be a nice tribute to them as well, because of, you know, they all did so much, and they continue. It lives on in their grandkids and their great grandkids. I mean, that family is amazing.
Absolutely.
You know, they never give up.
No, they don't. And Ruben, I'm close with. So, and his daughter has been at our festival and acknowledged at our festival. And
yeah, they're a special family for sure.
Yeah,
you know.
Yeah, they are. So this is great. This is all good news, and I am just thrilled and so excited for you and all the blessings and all the success and only goodness for you and your creative energy, and keep making movies, Loretta. You're an incredible, talented director, and I just am in awe, and I want you to direct me. No.
Oh, thank you. Well, no, you know, I think I have a certain rapport with actors. I don't know why, you know, and you know, I've studied acting a little bit just so I knew a little bit more about acting. You know, so hopefully I create I think one of the things I did was I asked an American producer, filmmaker, a couple of times over in the past, and I said, well, why are Canadian films like they are and American films are like they are? And he said, you know, Canadian films don't really work on blocking. You don't really necessarily, you know, make good use of space, the cinematic space. And, you know, not to criticize, I got some of my favorite films are made by Canadians, but, you know, so I was very conscious of that, you know, just like that idea about, you know, if you're a woman, you have to do twice as hard. If you're an Indigenous woman, you have to do 4 times as hard. So I was very, very conscious. I storyboarded everything. I blocked everything. And sometimes my cinematographer, Sterling, you know, Bancroft, who's amazing, said, look at her, you don't have to work so hard. I said, yes, I do. I have to work that hard. Because...
Yeah, I get that too. It's like, you're like, what? And it's like, yeah.
Yeah, I have to. So I think that helped because they let them, because I was like, they knew I was ready. And so, you know, they were ready. And I think that really helped. And yes, I would be honored to direct you. So
yeah,
I have to find the right story. So that would be great.
Yeah, it's interesting how we have to wear many hats and work harder than anybody, but it's all worth it. And I'm not complaining. I love it, and we're getting better at it, and more funding is going to come our way to do what we need to do. And it's a new day.
Yes, thank you so much. Thank you so much for inviting me, and thank you for all your encouraging words. It means a lot. Sometimes you feel alone, you know, even if there's people love the film. It's been so well received by the Indigenous community. They just talk about healing. People have seen it 2 and 3 times, and it's just been amazing. So you know, you still sometimes feel alone. So thank you so much for your good words. It will carry me and help me through, as you know, on to the next one.
Oh, good. Well, just know that you have a seat at this table here at Red Nation anytime and always, Loretta. We love you over here. So.
Thank you. Hi. I appreciate that so much.
Yeah. So everyone, you can see Monkey Beach at rednationff.com until November 30th. And then hopefully soon on the network after distribution and all that plays itself out, hopefully. And then good news, we'll have more of Loretta's films on the television network. So that would be amazing for you to check that out. But the main thing is, there's 105 films that you can view from your own home, eating popcorn, laying back on your couch with your feet up and watching these gorgeous, gorgeous Native and Indigenous films. So everyone out there, get your tickets, watch these films, and enjoy from a Native perspective, Native point of view. Thank you, Loretta.
Hi, thank you.
Loretta Todd, Director of Monkey Beach. Thank you all for joining us.
Thank you.
And I am going to say a couple of things about Red Nation. 25th Red Nation Celebration Institute is creating systemic change through the arts and media, the first and largest global Native woman-led enterprise, founded in 1995 in Santa Fe, New Mexico during Indian Market. Red Nation Celebration Institute is the longest standing American Indian and Indigenous media, educational, arts, and cultural nonprofit based in Los Angeles. RNCI, the authentic voice of American Indian and Indigenous nations, increases visibility of independent filmmakers, media artists, contemporary and traditional performing arts of diverse artistic disciplines, and content creators, amplifying cinematic excellence with emphasis on initiatives for Native women, girls, and youth in all media platforms and educational institutions. RNCI is dedicated to changing the narrative about Native peoples on a global scale. Our RNCI Board of Directors has built the Institute to cast light on the voices, stories, contributions, and assets of contemporary Native peoples, in replacing dangerous stereotypes that Native peoples face in media and academia. With a 25-year history of cohesive research-informed strategies, groundbreaking initiatives through cinematic excellence, media, and a strong focus on partnerships. Thank you for joining us, and we'll see you next time.